I stood there under the harsh Colorado sun, eyes half closed as I stared at the empty patch of asphalt where our car had been just 10 minutes earlier. The space looked wrong, like something had been erased from reality. My wife Chloe and her friends Ella, Stephanie, and Lauren were gone. No car, no dust trail, no familiar sound of the engine, just empty highway and heat. At first, I told myself it was one of their usual dumb pranks. They were always doing things like this, trying to be edgy and funny, testing how far they could push me before I finally blew up. 5 years of marriage had taught me to expect these games. I knew the way they laughed at me. I knew how Chloe would laugh with them instead of asking them to stop. I knew that feeling of being the target, not part of the group. But this time felt different in a way I could feel in my bones. My phone was still plugged into the charger in the car, out of reach. My wallet was in the glove compartment. All I had on me were the faded t-shirt and jeans I was wearing, and a growing hollow feeling in my gut that got heavier as the minutes passed. We had been on a road trip to Stephanie's lake house for 3 days, and I'd been miserable almost the entire time. Chloe had begged me to come, insisting it would be a great chance for me to bond with her friends. I had not been excited because I knew how they were. They treated me like an outsider, like a tag-along. They threw out inside jokes I did not understand, and took jabs at me disguised as humor. But I went because I loved her, or at least I thought I did. The gas station sat alone in the middle of nowhere, just a dusty stop off the highway with a flickering sign and a single old fuel pump. I went inside to use the bathroom and did not think twice. They had always waited before. I assumed they would wait again. This time they did not. An hour passed. I walked back and forth over the cracked pavement, kicking little rocks, talking myself into calm. They would come back, I told myself. Any minute now. I would hear tires on gravel and see Chloe leaning out the window, laughing, saying something like, "Got you, you should have seen your face." The road stayed quiet. 2 hours later, sweat ran down my neck and my throat felt dry. My mind would not stop replaying the last few days. Stephanie smirking when she spilled coffee in my lap, and then calling it an accident. Lauren leaning toward Chloe at the lake house, whispering something that made Chloe giggle while they both glanced at me. Ella watching everything with that smug, satisfied grin like she was watching a show. Looking back, I realized they had been building up to something. They had been preparing this moment, and I had been too trusting and too tired to see it. A big truck pulled into the station, its engine rumbling loud enough to shake me out of my thoughts. The driver was a large man with a gray beard and a stained baseball cap. He leaned out the window and studied me. "You okay, buddy? You have been standing out here a while." His voice was rough, but there was kindness in it, and that kindness hit me hard. Harder than I expected. I was not okay. I knew then they were not coming back. Chloe was not coming back. I swallowed, trying to keep my voice steady. "Yeah," I said. "My ride left me. Think you could help?" He nodded like this was not the first time he had seen something like this. "Hop in. Where you headed?" The honest answer was I did not know. Home, I guessed. Back to the house. Back to Chloe. Back to the life I thought we were sharing. But as I climbed into the passenger seat of that truck, something deep inside me shifted. 5 years of her laughing when I was the target. 5 years of her brushing me aside. 5 years of her standing silent or joining in when her friends treated me like trash. It all rose up inside me like a wave of heat and shame and anger. I stared out the window as the gas station shrank in the side mirror. The trucker kept his eyes on the road, humming along with some old country song on the radio. He did not ask many questions, and I was grateful for that. My hands clenched into tight fists on my lap. I could have asked to borrow his phone. I could have called Chloe, demanded an explanation, demanded to know what she thought she was doing. I could almost hear her answer in my head. "It was a joke, babe. You're too sensitive." I had heard similar lines over and over. Every time I tried to tell her her friends were rude and mean, she rolled her eyes and said I just did not understand their sense of humor. Maybe I did not. Maybe I never would. But standing alone where they had left me, like an unwanted dog dropped on the side of the road, I realized something important. They did not understand me either. And Chloe had chosen them over me again and again. The trucker dropped me off at a crossroads and pointed down a long stretch of road. "Grand Junction is that way," he said. "Closest town from here. Good luck, man." He tipped his cap. My throat felt tight as I nodded my thanks and climbed down. I started walking. The ground kicked up little clouds of dust with each step. The sun beat down on my head. I had no phone, no money, and no real plan, just the clothes I had on and the road ahead. A part of me wanted to turn back, to beg someone at the gas station to let me use their phone, to call Chloe, to demand she come back and fix this, to beg her to choose me for once. But another part of me, louder now, kept pushing me forward. I was done being the joke, done being the one they laughed at, done being the safe target in their small little world. Chloe and her friends thought they had won something. They thought they had broken me, proved some point they thought was funny. But as I walked toward Grand Junction, to my own surprise, a strange calm settled over me. They had not broken me. They had accidentally set me free. I did not know what I would find in that town. I did not know how I would eat, or where I would sleep, or how I would get by with nothing on me. But for the first time in years, I was not afraid of what Chloe would think. I was not worrying about how her friends would twist things. I was alone, yes, but I was not useless. The road ahead looked endless and empty, but it was my road now, not theirs. They had left me behind. Maybe that was the worst thing they had ever done. Or maybe, without meaning to, it was the best. By the time the sun slid lower in the sky and painted everything orange, I had already decided. I was not going back. Not to Chloe. Not to that life. Whatever came next would be mine to build. I stood again at that dusty crossroads in my memory, the Colorado wind swirling little clouds of dirt around my shoes. Grand Junction lay somewhere ahead of me. I had no map, no phone, and not a single coin in my pocket. The only things I owned in that moment were the clothes I was wearing and a mind swirling with memories. Chloe and her friends had left me stranded, and even though my chest still ached, even though part of me still wanted to hear her voice just once more and demand she explain, another part of me knew the truth. I could call her if I somehow found a phone, but what then? She would cry. She would pretend to be worried. She would claim it was just a prank that went too far. She would make it my job to comfort her. I thought about her laughing when Stephanie knocked my beer over at the lake house. How she shrugged when I quietly asked her to stick up for me, just once in front of her friends. How she always made me feel like I should be grateful to even be included. 5 years of that. 5 years of feeling like a visitor in my own marriage. No, I was not calling her. Not this time. I walked toward town, my sneakers crunching gravel and loose bits of road. The sun still beat down hard, heating the pavement and soaking my shirt with sweat. I had no idea how far Grand Junction was. Maybe miles and miles. Maybe I still had hours to go. I kept walking anyway. Every step felt like a choice. It felt like I was walking away from her, away from the pain, away from the old version of myself that always accepted less than he deserved. My thoughts kept pulling back to the moment at the gas station. I saw myself stepping from that dirty bathroom into the harsh sunlight, expecting to see the car, expecting to see them waiting. Instead, I saw nothing but empty pavement and the endless road they had planned it. I could picture it easily. Chloe in the driver's seat, Stephanie in the passenger seat, Ella and Lauren in the back, all of them giggling as they drove away, thinking it was the funniest thing they had ever done. I could almost hear Chloe saying, "He will figure it out. He always does." Well, I was figuring it out now, just not in the way she imagined. Eventually a pickup truck came rumbling down the road. I stuck out my thumb, hoping the driver would be as kind as the last one. The driver, a man with a scruffy beard and a faded flannel shirt, slowed down and looked me over. "Need a ride?" he asked. "Yeah," I said, heading to Grand Junction. "Hop in. I'm going that way." I climbed in, grateful to give my feet a rest. The inside of the truck smelled like engine oil and cigarettes, but it was better than walking under the sun. "What is your story?" he asked as we drove. I hesitated, then let out a tired breath. Got left behind by some people I thought I could trust. He made a short, rough sound. "Happens more than you would think out here." He dropped me near the edge of Grand Junction, close to a blinking traffic light and a small cluster of stores and buildings. He told me to take care, then he drove away. I stood there for a moment, just looking at the town. People were walking along the sidewalks, going in and out of shops, carrying bags, drinking coffee, laughing. To them, it was just another normal day. For me, everything had changed. I had no wallet, no ID, no phone, and no proof of who I was. I needed help fast. A few blocks away, I saw a plain building with a cross painted on the side and a small sign indicating it was a shelter. My stomach twisted at the thought of walking in there. Me, a man who had a home, a job, a wife just a few days ago. Now, standing in front of shelter with nothing. But I did not have options. Inside, the air smelled of bleach and old coffee. A man behind the counter looked up at me. His name tag said Roy. He looked to be around 50, with a shaved head and a serious stare that told me he had seen a lot. "You lost or just broke?" he asked, looking me over. "Both," I answered honestly. "Got ditched on the highway. No money, no phone, nothing." Roy did not look surprised. "Happens," he said. "You got a name?" "Yeah, Mike." He handed me a clipboard. "Fill this out. We'll get you a bed for tonight. Tomorrow, we'll figure out the rest." That night, I lay on a narrow cot in a big room full of snoring men. The ceiling above me was stained and cracked. I could not sleep. My mind ran in circles. Chloe's face kept appearing in my head. Her laugh, her voice. I wanted to hate her so much that I would never think of her again. But part of me still wished she would walk in, apologize, say it had gone too far, and take me home. But that was not real. Roy's words were real. "Tomorrow, we'll figure out the rest." And he meant it. The next morning he sat down across from me with a cup of weak coffee and a simple plan. "You need ID," he said. "Without it, you cannot do anything. No job, no bank, nothing. It will take time, but we will start. In the meantime, you need cash." I nodded, feeling small and useless. "Know anywhere that might hire someone like me?" I asked. Roy smirked a little. "There is a diner down the street. Owner is a tough old woman named Jacqueline. Tell her I sent you." The diner was a small place called Jackie's, with red vinyl booths and a jukebox in the corner. The kind of place that smelled like coffee, bacon, and burned toast. Jacqueline stood behind the counter, wiping it down. She was wiry and older, with tattoos on both arms and a stare that could cut through steel. "Roy says you need work," she said without looking up. "Yes," I said. "Anything you have." She gave me a long look, like she was trying to read my whole life in a few seconds. "Dishwasher quit yesterday. Pay is bad, hours are long. If you steal from me, you are done. Start now." I blinked, then nodded. "Okay, I am in." She tossed me an apron, and that was that. I spent the rest of the day in the back, scrubbing plates and pans in hot, soapy water. My hands turned red and sore, but it was work. It was something. It was mine. No Chloe. No friends making jokes at my expense. Just me and a sink full of dishes. Later that week, Roy helped me fill out forms for a new ID. "You're doing all right, Mike," he said, clapping my shoulder. I was not sure about that, but I kept going. The shelter became my bed. The diner became my lifeline. I did not call Chloe. I did not ask anyone to help me reach her. I went to bed exhausted every night, but it was the kind of exhaustion that felt clean, like the ache after a hard day of honest work. I woke up each morning on that same cot, my back aching, the sound of coughing and snoring around me. A couple of weeks went by like that. I scrubbed dishes, slept in the shelter, and wore donated clothes. My hands were raw and cracked from the hot water, but I did not mind. The pain kept my thoughts steady. Roy stayed in my corner, reminding me the ID process would take time, but it would come through. His rough kindness mattered more than he knew. At the diner, Jacqueline kept me sharp. She barked orders, called out mistakes, and yelled at me to move faster, but there was something solid in the way she treated me. She did not baby me, did not pity me. She saw me as someone who could work, and that was enough. I took every extra shift she offered. I stuffed my cash into a small envelope I kept hidden under my cot at the shelter. When I got my first small paycheck, I went to a gas station and bought a cheap prepaid phone. Standing outside the station with that phone in my hand, I felt an odd surge of pride. It was not much, but I had bought it on my own. I did not need Chloe for this. I did not need anyone. The phone started buzzing the very next day. I was up to my elbows in soapy water when I felt it move in my apron pocket. I wiped my hands on a towel and pulled it out. The screen showed a number I knew by heart. Chloe. My chest tightened. I let the phone ring until it went silent and flipped to voicemail. A moment later, a notification popped up. I hesitated, then pressed play. Her voice came through soft and shaky. "Mike, where are you? We waited for you. It was just a joke. We are so worried. Please call me back." I stared at the sink as water ran. Worried. If they had been worried, they would not have driven off. They would have turned around. They would have checked. They would have come back. The phone buzzed again. This time it was Stephanie. Her voice sounded completely different. "Come on, dude. You have to admit that was hilarious. Call us back." Hilarious. To them, I was a joke. A story to tell at parties. More calls came after that. More messages. Chloe again. Then Lauren. Then Chloe once more. They texted things like, "We miss you," and "Where did you go?" and "This is not funny anymore." I sat on my cot in the shelter that night, the room dim and filled with the quiet sounds of other people trying to sleep. The phone screen glowed in my hand, full of their words, full of their lies. I listened again to Chloe's first message. Then Stephanie's. Then one from Lauren that was just giggling before it cut off. My thumb hovered over the call button. Part of me wanted to shout at Chloe, to demand the truth, to ask why she thought this could ever be a joke. But I knew how it would go. She would cry. She would twist it until I felt guilty. I had seen her do it too many times. I had spent years swallowing my anger and telling myself a good husband kept the peace. Not anymore. One by one, I blocked them. Chloe, Stephanie, Ella, Lauren. My fingers shook slightly, but I kept going until they were all cut off. Then the phone went completely silent. No more calls. No more messages. No more fake concern. I leaned back against the wall and let out a breath I had not realized I was holding. It felt like I had just cut away a heavy rope that had been wrapped around my chest for years. They did not get to decide what happened to me next. I did. The next day, I went back to the diner and worked like always. I lost myself in the rhythm of dishes and orders, of hot water and clattering plates. I let the heat burn the last echoes of their voices out of my head. Jacqueline studied me for a moment. "You were quiet today," she said. "Trouble. Just sorting some stuff out," I answered. "As long as it does not mess with my kitchen," she said. Then she walked off. By the end of the week, I had saved enough to get a second-hand jacket from the donation room. It kept out the chill of early mornings when I walked to work. The prepaid phone sat quiet in my pocket, and for once I liked it that way. Chloe and her friends were out of my life. The hurt was still there, but it felt less like a wound and more like a scar. I had a job, a bed, a plan, even if it was a small one. They could not touch that. Months passed. I saved enough money to leave the shelter and rent a tiny studio apartment above a laundromat in town. The room was small with a lumpy mattress, a single hot plate, and a cramped bathroom, but it was mine. My own key, my own space. No one else deciding whether I belonged. Jacqueline noticed my work and decided to give me more responsibility. I moved from dishwashing to prep work, cutting vegetables, peeling potatoes, and helping on the grill when it got busy. My hands grew stronger. My arms toughened from lifting heavy boxes and scrubbing pans. I started to feel less like a man who had been thrown away and more like someone who was worth something. Nights were still hard. Sometimes I lay on that worn mattress, staring at water stains on the ceiling, and Chloe would float into my mind. I remembered the way her eyes crinkled when she smiled back when things were good. I wondered where she was, what she was doing, if she missed me at all. The loneliness hurt, but morning always came. The laundromat below me hummed to life. The smell of detergent rose through the floor. I would pull on my jacket and head to the diner, where no one mocked me and no one rolled their eyes at everything I said. For the first time in years, I was simply me. That felt strange and good. One night, restless and bored, I picked up my prepaid phone. I had kept it basic. No real contacts, no ties back to my old life. Still, curiosity stirred. I made a fake social media profile with a random name and no photo, then searched for Chloe. Her profile came up right away. She looked the same as before. Her life looked shiny and perfect. Pictures from the lake house. Shots of her and Stephanie posing by the water, cups in hand. Ella laughing in the background. All smiles. Then I saw a post that made my stomach twist. There was an old photo of the two of us at a picnic, smiling at the camera. Her caption said something like missing my love. I pray he finds his way back to me. I stared at those words. My thumb froze on the screen. Missing me. She had left me at a gas station in the middle of nowhere with nothing, laughed about it with her friends, and now she was telling the world I had disappeared and broken her heart. The comments made it worse. Stephanie saying, he will show up. Lauren writing, sending hugs. Everyone treating her like she was a victim abandoned by a cruel husband. I shut off the app and tossed the phone onto the mattress. The sound echoed in the small room. She had not changed. Her friends had not changed. They still did whatever they wanted and then twisted the story when things got ugly. But I had changed. I was not the man in that picnic photo anymore. I was not the one who swallowed every insult and laughed along to keep things from getting awkward. I was someone else now. Someone they did not know. The next day at the diner, I was quieter than usual. My mind still chewed on what I'd seen. Jacqueline noticed. You look like someone kicked your dog, she said, sliding a plate of fries toward me when we had a lull. Just thinking, I said, picking at the fries. About what she pressed. That ex of yours. I was surprised she guessed so quickly. I had not told her much of anything. Just pieces here and there. Yeah, I admitted. Saw something online. She's acting like she is the one who got hurt. Jacqueline let out a rough laugh. Sounds like a real gem. Good riddance. I nodded and felt a small, real smile tug at my lips. She was right. Good riddance. Work kept my hands busy and my thoughts calmer. The diner had its regulars now. People who nodded at me when they came in and left a little extra tip when they could. My reflection in the glass door did not look like a broken man. It looked like someone who had taken a beating, stood back up, and kept walking. I stopped checking on Chloe online after that. Whatever story she was telling, I did not care. I had my studio. I had my job. I had my slow, steady life. That was enough. Over time, the loneliness dulled. It did not disappear, but it no longer controlled me. I could wake up, drink some coffee, walk to work, and feel something like peace. Freedom was not loud. It did not show up with music and confetti. It looked like a small room, a key I owned, a paycheck with my name on it, and choices that were finally my own. I had been living that way for a while when she walked into the diner. Sienna, she started coming in twice a week, always sitting at the same booth by the window. She carried a heavy backpack, pulled out stacks of textbooks, and wrote notes while muttering medical terms under her breath. I figured she was in medical school or something similar. Her order never changed. Denver omelet, no tomatoes. Extra coffee. She hardly looked up when I brought her plate. I watched her sometimes from the counter, amused by how she got so lost in her studying that her fork would pause halfway to her mouth for a long time before she noticed. I did not even know why I started messing with my name tag. Maybe I was bored. Maybe I wanted to see if I could make her smile. One day my tag said Bob. The next, Steve. After that, Carl. I rotated through names just to see if she was paying attention. At first, she was too deep in her books to notice. Then, one morning I pinned on a tag that said Rusty and brought her usual order. She looked up, glanced at the tag, then at my face, and her eyes narrowed. Your name tag is wrong, she said in a calm, doctor-like tone. I grinned. Is it? I asked. She gave the smallest smirk, then went back to her notes. But that moment stuck with me. From then on, Sienna became the bright point in my week. She would come in, order the same thing, and dive into her books. I would bring her coffee, clear her plates, and make small comments when I could. She would nod, or mumble thanks, or give me that little smirk that felt like a small puzzle I wanted to solve. One day, she walked in looking more tired than usual. Her hair was messy. Her eyes were heavy. Her books looked heavier than normal. I set her coffee down and asked, "Rough night?" "Exams," she said, rubbing her eyes. I have not slept in 2 days. I did not try to cheer her up with big words. I just nodded and went back to the kitchen. While I returned with her food, I slipped an extra hash brown onto her plate. She noticed, looked up at me, and said, "You're sneaky. Gotta keep you awake somehow," I replied. Our first real date was not planned. One evening, she came in dressed in jeans and a nice top instead of her normal sweatshirt. She told me her friends had canceled last minute on a reservation at a nice pizza place across town. "I'm not wasting it," she muttered. Then she looked at me. "You free?" I was cleaning the counter. My shift was almost over. Jacqueline was within earshot. "Go on, kid," she called out. "You are no good to me," standing there moping. So I went. We shared a pepperoni pizza and a pitcher of soda. I told her the story of the fake name tags. She laughed, really laughed, in a way that warmed something in my chest. "I knew it was not Rusty," she said with a grin. "You're not that old." We talked until late about her classes, my job at the diner, silly topics like favorite shows, and worst meals we had ever eaten. It felt easy and natural, like we had known each other longer than a few months of omelets and coffee. 6 months later, she moved into my little studio above the laundromat. The place was cramped. Her textbooks took up half the room. We bumped into each other constantly, trying to cook on the tiny hot plate or move around the bed. I did not mind at all. Sometimes she studied late, the yellow light of the lamp shining across her notes while I drifted off. I would wake up in the night to hear her quietly murmuring medical terms in her sleep. It was strange and comforting at the same time. A year later, we rented a bigger apartment together. A real place. A kitchen with more than one burner. A couch that did not smell like bleach. A bedroom door that actually closed. Life with Sienna was different. Better. She did not mock me. She did not let anyone else mock me. She did not make me feel small when I was nervous about something. When I doubted myself, she would look at me and say, "You have got this." And for the first time, I believed it when someone said that. We cooked together. We watched old TV shows. We argued about who should do the dishes, but it was the kind of argument that ended with smiles instead of slam doors. It was simple. It was steady. It was ours. Meanwhile, Chloe could not leave the past alone. She found my email somehow, maybe through an old bill or a stray account. The first message came a few weeks after Sienna moved in. It popped up on my phone while I was chopping peppers at the diner. It said something like, "Mike, I just want to know you are okay. I miss you. We all do." I stared at the screen, my knife hovering over the cutting board. Miss me. She had left me at a gas station in the middle of nowhere. She had laughed about it. She had turned me into a joke for her friends. Now she missed me that I deleted the email. More came after that. Some were long, dramatic, and full of excuses. Others were short and sweet, pretending to be honest. "I messed up. I know. Please talk to me. I saw your grandma. She is worried." She always knew how to aim for the tender spots. Each time, I felt a small ache in my chest. Each time, I hit delete. Sienna caught me once staring at my phone with a frown. "Who is that?" she asked. "Nobody," I said. She did not push. She trusted me. She did not need every detail. She just needed to know I was present and with her. I was not going back. Not for Chloe. Not for anyone from that life. Life with Sienna was better than anything I thought I deserved. The diner was busy. My hands were steady. Chloe's emails faded into background noise I could tune out. I owed her nothing. Time moved on. I worked hard. Jacqueline began to lean on me more in the diner. She barked at me less and nodded at me more. One day, during a slow moment, she called me over. "You're not half bad at this," she said, wiping her hands on a rag. I gave a half smile, thinking she was just being nice. "I am opening a second place across town," she continued. "Smaller spot. I need someone to run it. You in?" For a moment, I forgot to breathe. "Me? Running a diner? You serious?" I asked. She snorted. "Do I look like I'm joking? You work hard. You do not steal. You do not complain. Say yes or no." That night, I sat on the couch at home, the TV playing quietly. Sienna came in, tired from study session, and dropped her bag by the door. "You look like you swallowed a brick," she said. I told her about the offer, about putting me in charge of a new diner. She sat down next to me, her knee touching mine. "You're thinking of saying no," she said. "I can tell." "What if I screw it up?" I asked. She took my hand. "You're already doing half that job," she said. "You help with orders. You fix problems. You keep things running when she is yelling at someone else. The only difference is now you get the title. You've got this." Her faith hit me hard. Chloe would have laughed, made jokes, told her friends about how funny it was that I thought I could be a boss. But Sienna just looked at me with calm, steady eyes. "All right," I said. "I will do it." She smiled, leaned her head on my shoulder, and said, "Good. Now stop worrying. We have dishes to wash." The next day, I told Jacqueline yes. She grunted in approval, tossed me a set of keys, and said, "Do not burn it down." The new place was small with about 10 tables and a narrow kitchen. It was messy and cramped, but it was mine to run. The first few weeks were chaos. The waitresses messed up orders. I burned fries. The timing was off. But I learned. The rhythm came. Regulars started to show up. The place began to feel alive. One day, while I was checking inventory on my phone in the back, an email flashed across the screen. From Chloe. It said something like, "Your grandmother has been asking about you. Please let us know you are alive." My chest tightened again. My grandma had always been kind to me. Bringing her into this felt low. Chloe knew what she was doing. I pictured her putting on a sad face while typing, acting like she was only doing this because she cared. I deleted the email. She did not get to use my family against me. Not after what she had done. I started working even harder at the diner. The place filled with truckers, locals, families. People learned my name. I was not a joke to them. I was the guy who made their breakfast the way they liked it. At home, Sienna's books moved from student text to professional materials. She kept asking how work was, and I kept telling her the truth. Good, I would say, and I meant it. More emails from Chloe went straight into the trash. She had become a ghost I no longer had to listen to. I had been abandoned once. I had figured things out. I had built something strong and real from that broken start. Years passed. Sienna and I got married. We had 2 kids. The diner did so well that I eventually opened a 3rd location on the edge of town. Life was busy, loud, and full. Nothing like the empty, hollow feeling I had when Chloe left me at that gas station. 15 years after that day, I was standing in the kitchen of my 3rd diner, flipping eggs while the morning rush roared around me. Truckers called out for more coffee. Waitresses moved fast between tables. The air smelled like bacon and syrup. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I almost ignored it, but during a lull I pulled it out. A notification blinked on the screen. "Someone viewed your profile 27 times today." I did not use that site much. My profile was simple, with my name, the diners, and a blurry photo Sienna insisted I upload. I tapped the alert, and her name appeared. Chloe. Time seemed to slow. Her name hit me like a sudden blast of cold water. For a moment I was back at that gas station, staring at empty road. I set the phone down on the counter and gripped the edge until my knuckles went white. After everything I had done to bury that part of my life, here she was quietly poking at the walls I had built. I flipped the eggs without really looking. My mind raced. What did she want? Why now? 27 views in one day. She had been opening my page over and over, studying it. I pictured her sitting at a computer somewhere, clicking through my life. Seeing that I ran diners now. Seeing nothing about her. I checked her profile for half a second. She looked older. Shorter hair. A professional title under her name. I did not read the rest. I did not want to. I stepped into the small storage room and leaned against a shelf of canned tomatoes. My heart pounded. 15 years. A wife. 2 kids. A business. A life. And she could still rattle me just by looking at me online. I hated that. Part of me wanted to message her something sharp. Something like, what do you want? But I knew that would open a door I had worked too hard to close. I put the phone away and tried to bury myself in the rhythm of work. Orders came in. Plates went out. Customers laughed. Staff called my name for help. I moved from the grill to the counter to the sink, keeping busy. Chloe stayed at the back of my mind, like an itch I could not fully scratch. I did not tell Sienna that night. She sat on the couch, folding laundry while the kids shouted upstairs. Long day, she asked. Yeah, I said. Same as always. She handed me a pile of socks and smiled. I sat down, folded them, and tried to focus on the small, real things in front of me. The warm house. The smell of dinner. The sound of our kids arguing about something silly. Chloe stayed a ghost. I left her there. A few days later, I was at the original diner, wiping down the counter after the breakfast rush. The doorbell jingled, and when I looked up, I saw them. Chloe, Stephanie, Ella. My hands stilled on the rag. My stomach turned. They looked older. Some lines around their eyes, some tiredness in their faces. Chloe's hair was shorter. Stephanie still had that perfect practice swagger. Ella looked like she wanted to sink into the floor. They chose a booth by the window and sat down, their voices low but familiar even from across the room. I could have stayed where I was. I could have let one of the waitresses take their order. I could have hidden in the back. But this was my diner. My place. So I picked up a pot of coffee and walked over. Chloe noticed me first. Her eyes widened, and her mouth fell open. Oh my God, she said quietly. It is you. Stephanie leaned back, a half smile on her face. Look at you, she said. Big man now. Ella glanced up and then quickly down, fiddling with the corner of the menu. I stood next to the table, coffee pot in my hand, feeling strangely calm. What do you want? I asked. Chloe shifted in her seat. Her fingers twisted together nervously. Mike, can we talk? She asked. Please. I did not sit. I am working, I said. So talk. She glanced at Stephanie, then back at me, and started. It poured out. Her life had fallen apart. A business had failed. A marriage to some man I did not know had crashed. She was broke and desperate. She needed help. Stephanie stepped in, trying to make it sound light. You're doing well, right? She said. 3 diners. We just need a little help. For old times. Ella nodded softly. Just a small favor, she added. I listened to every word. Chloe's carefully chosen phrases. Stephanie's forced charm. Ella's guilty silence. They had tracked me down, watched my page online, and then walked into my diner expecting me to bail them out. I remembered the gas station, the laughing, the long walk to town, the shelter, the dishes, the phone calls I ignored, the emails I deleted, the years I spent building this life that I looked at them and said, wait here. Then I walked back to the office, my boots heavy on the floor. My hands shook slightly when I sat at the small desk. Not with fear, with anger, with memory. I could have told them to leave and never come back. I could have yelled until the whole diner stared. Instead, I pulled out the checkbook we kept in the office. I thought back 15 years to that day on the side of the road near Grand Junction, to what it would have cost me to get back to them. I wrote the check. Not for thousands. Not for hundreds. For the price of a bus ticket from Grand Junction back home. The amount they expected me to pay back then if I wanted to return to the life where I was only there to be laughed at. I walked back to the table. They stopped talking as I approached. Chloe looked up at me with hopeful eyes. I laid the envelope in front of her. She grabbed it quickly, her fingers tight. For a brief moment, I saw relief on her face. She opened it, looked at the number, and her expression collapsed. Her smile disappeared. Her eyes filled with confusion. Stephanie snatched the check from her hand and stared at it. What is this? She snapped. That, I said, is what it would have cost me to get back to you the day you left me at that gas station. I did not take that ride. That is all you get from me now. Chloe opened her mouth, but no words came out. Stephanie shoved the check at me. You're a jerk, she said. After everything, I repeated. You left me with nothing. You laughed. You turned me into a joke. This is me being generous. Ella flinched at that, her hands balling up in her lap. She did not say anything. I straightened. It is time for you to leave, I said. Do not come back. My voice carried enough that a few nearby customers turned to look. I walked away without waiting for an answer. I went back to the counter, set down the coffee pot, and poured myself a cup. My heart pounded in my chest, but my hands were steady. They sat there for a minute in stunned silence. Then they scrambled up. Chloe shoved the envelope into her purse. Stephanie muttered something angry. Ella drifted after them, head down. The bell over the door rang as they left. Then everything went back to normal. Coffee cups clinked. Forks scraped plates. The jukebox hummed in the corner. I took a sip of my coffee. It had gone cold, but I did not care. They had come into my life again, expecting me to save them. I had given them just enough to walk away, the same amount of help they once expected me to find for myself when they abandoned me. Nothing more. Later, I leaned against the front window and watched them in the parking lot. The glass was cool under my arm. They were arguing. Stephanie was loud, waving her hands, her face twisted in anger. Chloe stood there, shoulders slumped, the envelope crumpled in her hand. Ella hung back, arms folded, her face tight, like she might cry or run. I could not hear the words, but I did not need to. I had seen this pattern before. Stephanie blaming. Chloe trying to fix it. Ella caught in the middle. They had come begging and left empty-handed. I watched for a moment longer, then turned away. My coffee waited on the counter. The regulars still needed refills. The tables needed wiping. This was my world now, not theirs. That night, I drove home with the radio low and the road dark around me. The scene replayed in my mind. Chloe's stunned face when she saw the check. Stephanie's anger. Ella's shrinking posture. It should have felt great, shutting them down like that. And part of me did feel a sharp, quiet satisfaction. But there was another feeling too. A small itch in the back of my mind. They had looked desperate out there in the parking lot. Broken in ways I had not expected them to be. 15 years earlier, I might have run after them. I might have asked what went wrong and tried to help. Not this time. When I pulled into the driveway, our house glowed with warm light. Sienna's car was there. The kids' bikes lay in the yard. I stepped inside to the smell of leftover lasagna warming in the oven. Sienna sat at the kitchen table with a stack of papers, grading them with a pen in her hand. The kids were upstairs. I could hear faint voices. She looked up at me. "You okay?" she asked. I sat down across from her and laid my hands flat on the table. "They came by," I said. Her eyebrows lifted, but she stayed quiet, waiting. "Chloe, Stephanie, Ella," I said. "They wanted money." "And?" she asked. I gave them enough for bus fare. The amount it would have cost me to get back from Grand Junction all those years ago. Then I told them to leave. A small smile touched Sienna's face. "Bus fare," she said. I nodded and told her the rest. How they looked, what they said, how their faces shifted when they realized I was not going to rescue them. When I finished, she reached across the table and brushed her fingers against mine. "They cannot take anything from you that you do not give them," she said quietly. The words sank in deep. She was right. "Yeah," I said, my throat tight. She squeezed my hand once, then went back to her papers. She did not need to say anything more. She understood. We ate leftovers later, just the two of us. The kids were finally asleep. My mind kept drifting back to the parking lot, to Chloe's eyes, to Stephanie's anger, to Ella's small shape hovering on the edge. But each time, Sienna's voice pulled me back. "They cannot take anything from you that you do not give." They had taken enough. That night in bed, the house quiet around us, I stared at the ceiling for a while. I thought about the gas station, the shelter, the diner, the tiny studio above the laundromat, Sienna's first smirk, the kids laughing in the yard. I imagined Chloe standing outside the diner, holding that check. Then I imagined her fading out like smoke in the wind. They were on the other side of a door I had closed and locked myself. They did not get to step through it again. Weeks passed. The memory of that day with Chloe and her friends slowly softened around the edges. I went back to my routines, stirring pots at home, flipping burgers at the diners, tucking my kids into bed, listening to Sienna talk about her day. I had not seen or heard from Chloe since. No calls, no emails, no tiny alerts saying someone had viewed my profile again. It felt like a storm that had finally moved on. One evening, I stood at our stove, stirring a pot of chili. The smell of spices filled the kitchen. Sienna sat at the table with Tess spread out in front of her, glasses slipping down her nose as she grated. I tasted the chili, added a little more salt, then a little pepper. "Smells good," she said, smiling. "It better," I replied, smiling back. The kids burst in from the backyard, covered in dirt, shouting about a stick and a bug and some game they had made up. I told them to wash up before dinner. They groaned, dragged their feet to the sink, and splashed water everywhere. The house was loud and messy and full of life. It was ours. At the diners, regulars greeted me by name. Old Tom wanted his coffee just the way he always did. A trucker slapped a big tip on the table and said the burgers were the best he had tasted in a year. A woman with 2 kids asked for extra napkins and smiled when I brought them over before she even needed to ask. I belonged there. Jacqueline visited one morning, walking into the original diner with her tattoos a little faded and her hair a bit grayer. She looked around the room, nodded, and then clapped a hand on my shoulder. "You did not screw it up," she said. Then she walked out again. I laughed to myself as I poured coffee for another customer. I thought about the man I had been at that gas station years ago and the man I was now. My life was not perfect. It was not shiny and glamorous, but it was real. It was steady. It was mine. I did not search for Chloe online anymore. I did not wonder what she was doing or who she was with or how her story had turned out. She might still tell people I was the one who left. She might still play the victim. I did not know. I did not care. The last thing I ever gave her was that bus fare. Just enough to walk away, the same way she had once walked away from me. I did not feel guilty. I did not feel like I owed her more. I felt free. Sienna and I took the kids to the park on a crisp fall weekend. Leaves crunched under our shoes. Our son ran ahead, kicking a ball. Our daughter clung to my hand, pointing at every squirrel she saw like it was the first squirrel on earth. Sienna walked next to me, her arm brushing mine. "You are quiet," she said. "Just happy," I replied. She squeezed my hand, and we kept walking. Back home, we ate chili that was a bit too spicy for the kids, but they ate it anyway with exaggerated faces. I sat at the table, watching them argue over the last piece of bread, while Sienna rolled her eyes at their noise. This was it. Not some big, dramatic revenge. Not a cruel plan. Not a shout or a slam of a door. Just this. A good life. Chloe had wanted me broken. She had probably expected me to come crawling back, begging for a place at her side again. Instead, I had walked away from that gas station, from her, from the life where I was only ever the target of the joke. Roy at the shelter. Jacqueline's diner. Sienna's laughter. Our kids. The keys in my pocket. Every step away from her had been a step toward this. They had not lost because I had crushed them. They had lost because I had finally stopped playing the game they loved so much. The days kept moving. School runs. Diner shifts. Evenings on the couch with Sienna. I did not look back. I did not need to. Sometimes in quiet moments, I would think of Chloe briefly. Her smirk. Her fake tears. The way she always twisted the truth. But the thoughts would pass like a cloud across the sun. I would turn up the radio, flip another burger, or hug my daughter a little closer, and the shadows would fade. One night after the kids went to bed, I sat on the porch with a beer in my hand. The night air was cool against my skin. The yard was quiet except for a few insects and the distant sound of a car passing by. Sienna came out wrapped in a blanket and sat next to me. "What's on your mind?" she asked. I took a sip, looked up at the stars, and felt something steady in my chest. "Nothing," I said. Then I smiled. "Everything." She leaned her head on my shoulder. We sat there in comfortable silence, breathing in the night, feeling the weight of the years behind us and the calm of the life we had built. Chloe was gone, not just out of reach. Gone from my decisions. Gone from my future. Gone from the space inside me she used to occupy. The best revenge I had ever taken was not revenge at all. It was this life, simple and solid, so full and real that I did not need to prove anything to anyone. I had been left alone at a gas station in the sun with nothing. I had walked away from that moment and built everything I had from the ground up. That was enough.